This razor-thin example of mid-80s sensibilities is the Sony ST-JX500 Digital Radio Tuner. Now I realize this isn't a Weltron 2001 Spaceball. Some unforeseen problems have come up and I had to scrap that video more or less indefinitely. But I just came across this thing at Angel View Thrift Store here in Palm Springs, and it has a few interesting quirks. One in particular I thought was weird enough that it was actually worth it to do yet another radio tuner video. I feel like this is becoming the radio tuner channel. Nonetheless, this thing is interesting and we're going to talk about it. Stick around. This is the Sony ST-JX500 radio tuner. While it's a nice enough and certainly vintage looking piece of equipment, and it does sound pretty good, I discovered it has a gimmick. And you guys know me, I love gimmicks, so of course I had to bring it home. It's a digital tuner with what Sony calls a direct comparator circuit. What does that mean? Well, without going too deep into the theory behind radio reception, what they've done is eliminate a step in the process of digital tuning. There's a component called a prescaler that a lot of other digital tuners were using, and it tended to introduce noise into the signal. This does away with that and gives a much cleaner sound. So let's take a tour. On the far left is your power button, which Sony has surrounded with an unusual green plastic bezel. Below that, it still has the original logo sticker from their It's a Sony ad campaign. You have a button to switch between FM and AM, and the largest button on the face is the tuner button, which is actually two buttons. Like the Technics ST-S3 I covered a while back, I like that even though there are no knobs, they still make the actual tuner control the largest control on the interface. I appreciate consistent design language like that. You have three tuning modes available: manual, automatic, and sweep. Manual allows you to increase or decrease the frequency by increments of 10 kHz or 0.1 MHz for AM or FM respectively. You can also press and hold to quickly jog up and down. In auto mode, you just hit the tuner up or down and it will find the next station on its own. The sweep mode will automatically cycle through each station it finds. It will do that continuously, stopping on a station and then moving on to the next one every 4 seconds until you tell it to stop. Also, it won't start the sweep until you actually hit the tuner button and the mode indicator starts flashing. Now, I don't really know what purpose that serves. I suppose I can conjure up some very odd scenarios when that would be useful, but they're convoluted and most of them involve some X-Files type stuff. But it's a feature and it works, so why not? To cancel it, you have to hit the tuning mode button, which switches back to manual tuning. The final button on the left side is the ST muting button. The ST stands for stereo. That, like the last two radios I've shown, is a muting function that suppresses the interchannel hiss and only allows strong signals and engages the stereo multiplexing. Turning it off allows you to tune in weaker stations at the sacrifice of only getting a mono signal. The center of the unit contains the vacuum fluorescent display and some controls. At the top, you have the program switch. We'll get back to that in a second. Below that is your memory button. It's blue. And your memory scan button. It's not blue. Sony seemed to really like making one button a different color during this era. Those two buttons work in conjunction with the 10 station preset buttons on the right. You have 5 AM and 5 FM options. To save your preset, just find your station you want to save, hit memory, then tap the empty preset slot and you're done. Unused save slots default to the lowest frequency. The memory scan button allows you to sweep through the different presets, stopping momentarily on each, just like the tuning mode does for its sweep function. All right, now this is the bit that made me want to do a video on this thing. And you're probably going to think I'm nuts, but I was just tickled by this. You are not limited to 5 AM and 5 FM presets. You can put anything wherever you want. The labels are just that, labels. Did anybody notice that they kept switching places? That's because they're removable. They can switch places, or you can make your own. Now, they probably didn't intend that bit because color printers weren't common 40 years ago, but I did it just because I could, which I think is a perfectly valid reason. If I'm not mistaken, this would have originally come with different ones that you could swap out. Let's go back to that program switch though. The program feature allows you to choose up to 4 station presets that will automatically come on every time you power cycle the machine. Every time you turn it off and then on again, it'll go to the next station. To do that, you engage the switch, hit set, which is the memory button, then choose the order of the presets. The order number is in the bottom right corner of the display. To see what your saved program is, you hit the read button. That will show you the order of the presets, starting with the one that will come on the next time you power cycle it, and then it cycles to the current one. I think you would use that in conjunction with a tape recorder like the Onkyo TA2022 I showed a few months ago. For example, if you wanted to record something on K-Bear in the morning and then something on WKRP at 4:30, you could set a timer to power on and then off twice to record both shows at different times and different stations, all while you were at work, which is kind of awesome for the mid-80s. Finally, if you flip it over, there's a little tiny switch hiding on the side. It allows you to switch between the 10K increments for North and South America and the 9K increments for everywhere else in the whole world. This only applies to AM in this case though. So that's the functionality, but let's flip it around to the back. The first thing you'll notice is Sony's devotion to rectangles, because even the ferrite AM loop is encased in a rectangle that folds out. Next to it are the antenna hookups, an F-type coaxial hookup, and an AM, a ground, and a 300 ohm FM connection for bare wires or spade connectors. Lastly, there are the stereo RCA output jacks. So I think that's the extent of the features on this radio. You know the next part, right? We have to open it up. Once again, to get the top off, you just undo the two large screws on the left and on the right. When you lift the lid off, a few things stand out right away. The battery that's attached to the board to retain the program when it's unplugged is very prominent. That thing is pretty much toast now, so I will be changing it after I'm done with this video. Also, the big main tuner chip is under this grounded RF shield. If we flip it over, there's a panel which you can remove to get to the underside of the board if you need to replace or resolder any components, like the battery. It's nice that you can do it without pulling the whole board out of the chassis. Plus, I like that you only have to pull one screw all the way out. The rest of them can just be loosened, which is convenient if your wife likes to steal loose screws off your desk while you're working. All right, so parting thoughts. I think it's an interesting little tuner. My liking it is probably self-evident since I took the time to do a whole video about it, which I guess kind of goes without saying. It's definitely cool that you can program it to switch stations by power cycling, and I love the little changeable labels. So yeah, that is the Sony ST-JX500 AM/FM Stereo Tuner. Now before I go, I do want to take the time to address something. I just hit 1,000 subscribers a few days ago because the last video did so much better than I expected. I am elated, truly. You guys that watch my silly little videos and keep coming back and leaving such nice comments, you know who you are. You have made this a really rewarding experience for me, and I thank you so much. I am thrilled. It has been just over a year since I started, and I look forward to several more years of this and of you guys. So thank you, truly. So stay metal, y'all.